Now it's 102 degrees, and the Dow is down 2.28%, down 390 points at 16,607. S&P 500 down 48 points at 1989, and the NASDAQ down 124 at 4754. Reporting for Money Radio, I'm Ken Morgan.
The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily reflect the views of Money Radio staff, management, or advertisers, and do not represent an offer to buy or sell any securities. Some interviews heard on this program may be sponsored by the participants. It's time for Health Futures with Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob Roth, and you are listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. We're a weekly show found right here on Money Radio, 1510 AM, 99.3 FM, or on the World Wide Web at moneyradio1510.com. And if you're just tuning in, you heard the title of our show. It's Health Futures. Great play on words. We're here in Money Radio Studios, Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. We've been on the air now for just a little over 20 months, almost 21 months, and we've been bringing to our listening audience resources and experts to talk about how our aging adult population can live a healthier, happier life. And we've been very fortunate to have some incredible guests on our show. And today is no different. I'll take a moment and introduce him in a second, but I wanted just to give some current events. Today being August 21st, right before the weekend. Yesterday on August 20th, I had the privilege of being honored, and I'm very humbled to be one of the healthcare heroes that the Phoenix Business Journal puts out. And it was a spectacular event. A number of great people in our community are doing some wonderful things. And like I said, I'm so humbled because I don't really consider myself, one of those leaders and one of those heroes when I look at some of the people that were recognized. But our Lifetime Achievement Award winner was a woman by the name of Gladys McGarry. And Gladys McGarry is a 94-year-old physician. And she's been practicing medicine for like 69 years, and she has done some phenomenal things. We are very lucky to have so many of these heroes right here in our backyard, and many of these heroes have been on our show. I wanted to give also an update. Hospice of the Valley, I've had them here on our show. I had Susan Levine on. They just were selected for this new Medicare program. They were awarded a grant from Medicare to participate in a national program that will enable people with life-limiting illnesses to receive palliative care while receiving curative care. And for people that don't realize that, in the past, if you're receiving curative care, you weren't able to receive hospice or palliative care. So this is a real departure, and it's a real clear breakthrough on Medicare where they're allowing that. And it'll be an interesting thing for us to watch. So speaking of healthcare heroes, my guest is no different. He may feel that he's not a hero, but I believe truly he is. He's a behavioral health veteran, has been in the business for a long time. I'll let him tell a little bit about himself, but he is the fearless leader of an incredible organization, a social service organization that resides right here in Phoenix and has been here in this marketplace for over 80 years, making a difference in many people's lives to the tune of over 75,000 a year people's lives. Without further ado, I want to introduce Dr. Michael Zent. Dr. Michael Zent, welcome aboard.
Well, thank you, Bob. It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome to the studios. You're the president and CEO of Jewish Family and Children's Services.
Yes, Jewish Family and Children's Service, JFCS. We often go by our initials.
Yes.
President and CEO. I've been there about 6 years. At the current job before that, I worked in a lot of different behavioral health for the last, well, I hate to say how many years. Can I say at least 40?
You can say 40, and you know, in the second segment, I want to get a little bit more into it, but I really want to talk about, you know, this organization and what it's doing today, because, you know, I've had the pleasure, like I said at the top of this segment, of having some incredible people on the show. And we've talked about Alzheimer's and we've talked about dementia. And just recently I had two gentlemen from St. Luke's Behavioral Health Center on the show talking about some of the behavioral health challenges that we have. And that's kind of a sweet spot for JFCS, right?
Yeah, JFCS is a large provider of behavioral health services. So last year we saw over 37,000 people.
Wow.
We currently have in active treatment 10,000 patients at any given time. And we also have a lot of various programs in the sense that not only do we crisis services, we do in-home services, we predominantly see poor people. So about 97% of everybody we see is working poor at or below the poverty line. For those listeners that may not know, it's about 11,000 for a single person and about 24,000 for a family of four.
And that's to qualify below the poverty line, but to qualify for access, which is our state's Medicaid.
Right, and access has different requirements based upon a proportion of the poverty level. But for our entire population, 97% are about in that category.
So the income that you receive is purely through grants and philanthropy, right? And state dollars.
Well, we openly compete for contracts, so openly for Medicaid contracts. So most of our funding is an open, contract arrangement to provide services to poor people.
Wow.
And we also have some direct contracts with the Department of Child Safety, which deals with foster care kids and children who have a lot of problems in the home. You may read in the newspaper about a child that either was taken away from their parents because of abuse or neglect. Those are the kinds of cases that come to JFCS for services.
And what's interesting is, we're talking about the organization JFCS, a not-for-profit.
It's a not-for-profit. It's over 80 years old. It's non-sectarian. It's able to do things that other nonprofits can do, like fundraise, like provide care to needy people with donated funds that they may not be able to afford. So, and our programs range all the way from adult programs to kids programs. We're very specialized in the kids areas. So we, for example, have a team that goes out into the hospital and tries to divert, admission to the hospital. So a child may be in the emergency room, but if we can get them out of there, put them back in their home, and put some in-home services around them for like 2 weeks, that prevents the hospitalization. Because hospitalization, for anybody, but for a child to be put in the hospital is a very traumatic event, not only for the child, but for the family and who's ever, taking care of them.
And not only that, and primarily that, but secondarily, a huge cost to our healthcare system.
It's a huge cost to the healthcare system
because,
as well.
But doing the intervention, having your staff, your professionals, your clinicians avert the hospitalization going to home, it's a less costlier proposition.
Right. That very intervention makes the most sense from a clinical care for somebody standpoint as well as a business and financial standpoint and cost to society. Exactly.
Wow. Well, and you know what? I know we're coming up on a break, but one of the things that I do want to say is, we're talking about JFCS, but JFCS can only do what they do through the contracts it wins, through the grant monies they get, through the philanthropy they also receive, but most importantly, it's the staff that you have.
It's the staff.
Because
Absolutely.
You're only as good as your people, and I've had the chance of meeting some of your behavioral health counselors. They're exceptional.
Bob, you are right on.
Yeah, I know it. I mean, as you know, my family's been benefactors to JFCS for a number of years. I believe in the mission, and I think you guys are doing some incredible things in the community, and I want to hear more when we come back. My name is Bob Roth. I have Dr. Michael Zent in the studio from JFCS, Jewish Family and Children's Service. We will be right back.
The money talk you love, still on 1510 AM and now 99.3 FM.
Volatility is coming back into the market. After a few generally peaceful up years in the market, 2015 has already had a number of sharp up and down moves, and these are likely to continue. If you're prepared for it, volatility is opportunity. If you're not, it can quickly wipe out years of gains in your portfolio. Learn how to get on the professional side of the trade, the right side of the trade, regardless of volatility. Check out Online Trading Academy's The Right Side of the Trade, Thursday at noon on Money Radio 1510.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ray Lucia, and I talk about your money, your business, and your life right here on the radio. So if you happen to have any money-type questions, well, worry not. That's because I'm here to provide you with the most sound financial advice in the country. So tune in to the Ray Lucia Show every weekday, 10 to 11 a.m., right here on Money Radio 1510 a.m. and 99.3 FM.
Tune in every Wednesday at 10 a.m. for Precious Timber with Alex Wilson on Money Radio 1510 a.m. and 99.3 FM.
Are you retired or headed into retirement? Call Anil Vazirani and Secured Financial Solutions at 800-957-5604 extension 200 to learn how to maximize your Social Security and Medicare benefits and to potentially reduce taxes on your Social Security income. Call Secured Financial Solutions at 800-957-5604 extension 200 or on the web at www.theripa.com. Listen to Anil Vazirani on the Money Radio Show every Thursday at 9 a.m.
Oil. We produce it. We use it. We need it. Now you want to know how to invest in it. Join Brandon Cox, CEO of Pipeline Oil and Gas, at his new time, Monday from noon to 1 p.m. Brandon drills down the oil and gas industry. Learn what makes Pipeline different and things to look out for when investing in energy. Education is key when it comes to oil and gas, so don't miss Crude Awakenings with Brandon Cox every Monday from noon to 1 on Money Radio 1510 AM and 99.3 FM. For more information, visit pipelineoilandgas.com.
What's your dream? Enter the Bucket List Sweepstakes at the Arizona State Credit Union and you could win it. Visit bucketlistaz.com for official sweepstakes rules. Void where prohibited, no purchase necessary.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. My name is Bob Roth, and you are listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. And if you missed the first segment, I've got Dr. Michael Zent from Jewish Family and Children's Service here in the studio. They're a 80-year-plus old social service organization that serves the secular community right here in the greater Phoenix area. And if you missed our first segment, you can catch it right up on our website at cypresshomecare.com. Push on the radio button, and you can catch our first segment. You can catch about 84 others, and you can catch the next 3 that we're about to do. So, Dr. Zent, we were talking before the break. We were talking about the staff, the people.
Staff.
Because that's really, you don't have a social service organization if you don't have the people, the army of people.
Yeah, I would say that in social services and behavioral health, if you're not dedicated and don't have some mission commitment, you wouldn't even be in the field because the work is hard. The cases are rough. We see some very tough cases for kids. Mm-hmm. I'll talk a little bit about that.
I do want to talk about that.
And without really dedicated staff, and the staff are I guess the part of the agency that I feel the most proud of in a way. I mean, we do such good work, but the dedication, and when I say dedication, I mean staff that are willing to go the extra mile, to work the extra hour, to pay attention to the small details that are needed to make families, children's, and our adult services work. So without the staff, there'd be nothing. But the staff are exceptional, not only in their training and dedication. We have staff that have been there many years. We have a lot of young staff. Staff come to our agency to learn as well because we have such seasoned, experienced staff. They know they're dedicated. That not only do they learn clinical skills, but they get a sense of mission-driven work at the same time.
And you would think that an 80-year-old plus organization, you would be doing things so old school. And what I'm I'm amazed at by the JFCS is that you've embraced these technologies. I mean, I remember coming into your offices 5+ years ago, and you would have auditors. We get audited too by state programs and stuff, and you got everything digitized. I mean, you've embraced the latest in technology. Your organization has.
We have. We've embraced the latest, all the way from electronic health records to sharing of information. We're experimenting with some of the in-home mobile apps on your telephone, like maybe a depression screening instrument, wellness checks in the homes, and so forth. I want to give you one example of technology that is a lifesaver, and I'll just relate this story that happened several years ago.
Okay.
We have a lot of young staff, and as all of you that work with what they call the millennials, basically people under 30,
like our producer, Ash.
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, like us. That they live off text messaging a lot. So a few years ago, there was a request to authorize text messaging when it had not been authorized, for our phones, right? So it was approved. Our youth and transition team, which deals a lot with foster care youth, one of the supervisors is on a Saturday receives a text message from a child, which when I say child, under 18.
Right.
So, and this really young man expressed some suicidal thoughts. She knew that she had to do something. So she was able, after the text message, to then send a group message to all of the staff that had anything to do with this, and say, do you know where this person lives, because I'm very worried about him. In between, she dialed up the electronic health record to find out which medications he was on, because she suspected an overdose of something, and the EMTs were already in transit, but they didn't know where
the child lived.
Right, because he had moved about 2 weeks before that, and nobody knew the address. This is again one of the people who went on the group text message. This is on a Saturday now. This is because they look at their phones. Said, I don't know where he lives, but I picked him up after an event last week and delivered him to the apartment, and I can drive to that apartment. They came in. The paramedics had to break the door down. He had overdosed.
Wow.
Staff accompanied him to the hospital, and had it been about 4 more hours, he would be dead.
I mean, you can't see this, but the hair on my arms is sticking up. I mean, that is an incredible story, Dr. Zent. I mean, it says a lot about the people. I mean, some people today. I don't work on Saturday. I'm not looking at my phone. You have staff that cares, and especially when it comes to children. I mean, and I will share this with our listening audience. I did an expo the other day, and I was next door to another behavioral health operational organization here in the community called Teros. And I had asked them, have you ever heard of JFCS? I'm like, heard of them. They're incredible. We refer all our children to them, and they do an exceptional job.
Yeah, they're one of our fellow agencies that we collaborate and cooperate with.
And I think that is the resounding answer I get from most people when I talk about the work that JFCS does. It's you've got an incredible reputation, and Michael, I'm not here to stroke your ego, but I'm going to do it anyway for our listening audience. It all starts with leadership, and if you got a great leader and someone that can establish the vision, and granted, you've only been that helm for 5 or 6 years, but you had great leaders prior to that, and you've been able to keep the mission going. And in your short term there, I mean, you guys have more than doubled the amount of people you're seeing, the amount of revenue that you're doing. I mean, it is surely an amazing thing to watch, because we still have so many more people we got to help.
We have a really, really high need out there. That's one of the things of behavioral health, that the need just.
Well, let's talk about that, because you said something about 40 years, and you look like you might be about 50 something. So I find it hard to believe that you've been doing this for 40 years. But tell us a little bit about your background. And I really would like you to give us a kind of a state of where behavioral health is today, and where do you see it going in the future? Because, I know what it's like in home care, and what we're dealing with are challenges relating to depression, and what we're dealing with are challenges related to some diseases like Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's, and the effects that they have on so many.
Well, not to make a long story short, but and thank you for the 50, the comment on looking 50. But I actually started out when I was working through my way through the university. I actually started working at State Hospital, and which is a very stark and
State Hospital here. You're a native Arizona.
I'm a native Arizona. I was working down at 24th Street in Van Buren.
Okay.
So you get to see things there that if you're just coming from the outside that you wouldn't believe, because there's a lot of people with very, very serious problems. There's a lot of behavior issues and so forth. So I worked my way through into graduate school by working at State Hospital. That's what got me interested in behavioral health. And then I did an internship that was sponsored by the National Institute for Mental Health and the Arizona Department of Health Services in mental health administration. So that's how I actually got to do that. Mm-hmm. So I worked for the health department. I was the head of drug abuse for several years for Arizona Department of Health Services. And then I started looking more at running and starting programs at community-based agencies. So I did that, and then I had the opportunity to come up and run the behavioral health system under Value Options, the public behavioral health system. So I did that for 6.5 years.
And they were that was a big organization, Value Options. It's a big organization,
yeah. The contracts, we had about 1,800 staff and probably close to about $500 million a year in funds that we were administering. So I always tell people I have seen this, if you want to call the behavioral health system an elephant. I've seen, the various legs of the elephant, all the way from State Hospital to large managed care companies. And here at the community-based agency, I can tell you feel closer to what's happened in the community. So the need, the state of behavioral health, behavioral health and mental health, the focus varies over time. Recently, it's got more focus, perhaps for the wrong reason, because many of these national shootings, have clearly, almost all of them have clearly been by somebody who's either have been in treatment or who should have been in treatment or whose engagement with treatment failed. So, and that's why there's currently several bills in Congress at the national level to increase mental health funding because of the high visibility of these cases.
Yeah, and I know we're coming up on a break, and the headlines are littered with these behavioral health challenges, and we had one happen right here down in Tucson 3 or 4 years ago, and I know you lived down there for a number of years. That happened to Gabby Giffords.
Absolutely.
And you talked about the movie theaters, and I say theaters, it's in plural because there are copycat artists, and it's a shame that we can't go to the theater and think about our safety and our
without
protection.
thinking about that. Exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, I just heard recently that one theater chain is going to have metal detectors there. I'm like, really? Has our world really come to that? And I really think it's a point that you've made is maybe the system isn't set up correctly or the system's failed. We need to talk a little bit more about our behavioral health system and where things are and where they're going. It's hard to believe we're up on a break. We're down 2 segments, Michael. We got 2 more to go. You having fun?
I'm having a lot of fun.
And our job here is to really educate our listening audience. And JFCS is a great provider, but behavioral health is a huge challenge for our community. My name is Bob Roth. You're listening to Health Futures, and I've got Dr. Zent from JFCS. We'll be right back.
As we reach the mark of the hour, we pause for a look at the world's news. Then we're back with Money Talk. We're Money Radio 1510 and 99.3 FM.
The White House confirms that an American drone strike killed the Islamic State's second-in-command on Tuesday. Using what's called actionable intelligence, Hajiz Mutaz was targeted and killed while riding in a vehicle near Mosul in Iraq. Pentagon correspondent Barbara Starr.
This is a high-value target. It is very significant. And what we don't know is what intelligence they had. Is it telling them anything about where Baghdadi may be?
In the Atlantic, Danny has become the first major hurricane of the year after being upgraded to a Category 3. Meteorologist Jennifer Gray says Danny should peter out during the next few days.
It is supposed to weaken as time moves on, becoming a Category 2 by Saturday morning.
As tensions remain high between North Korea and South Korea, the U.S. has decided to suspend a joint military exercise in the region. North Korea has warned it will attack South Korea if the South doesn't stop propaganda broadcasts across the DMZ. I'm Jim Ascendio.
I'm Jay Farner with some great news on how you could save an average of $3,000 per year on your mortgage. Call Quicken Loans now at 800-QUICKEN to see if you qualify for the government's Home Affordable Refinance Program, or HARP. The HARP guidelines have changed. There's less paperwork and often no appraisal required. Call 800-QUICKEN. That's 800-QUICKEN, or visit QuickenLoans.com.
Important terms and conditions apply. Call us for cost information. Equal housing lender. Licensed law 50 states. And MLS number 3030.
She fell in love with my blue eyes, but that love is dead. Yeah. Been wearing old contacts. Now my eyes are all red. Girl, why'd I run out of contacts? I see nothing clear. Itchy eyes, old lenses. I can't hold back my tears. Never run out of contacts. Wish I could see you again.
Get free expedited shipping on all app orders. Never run out of contacts.
1-800-CONTACTS.
Want a good idea of what the weather's going to be when you arrive in that other city in the lower 48? The one where you have the big business meeting planned. Then give a listen each weekday morning on the Business for Breakfast show at 6:30 and 7:30. That's when certified meteorologist John Weatherby updates you with the business traveler's forecast. If there's a possibility of flight delays or cancellations, you'll have a heads up and can plan accordingly. Exclusively from Money Radio.
Stock market corrections may seem like random occurrences, but the fact is, market corrections are bound to happen. But what if you could see the correction coming in advance? What if you could be prepared to short the market before it's too late? Don't get caught off guard. Become a philsgang.com member and get all the daily market information, investment strategies, and be prepared to make profits when the market is up or the market is down. You can do this for only $49.95 a month. Learn how to invest in the market, get daily coaching guidance on your investments, and take the first step of putting profits in your pocket. With philsgang.com, you just log on and get daily instructions on how to invest in the market. You don't have to worry about long-term contracts or hidden fees. Plus, all philsgang.com material is archived. So just log on and enjoy the ride to profits. philsgang.com. Go to philsgang.com or give them a call today at 877-600-4264. That's 877-600-4264.
Laura Bramnick is a real estate agent and a real estate attorney. She can help you buy or sell real estate, and she can provide legal counsel, usually at no additional cost. You could just work with a realtor, or you could work with a realtor and real estate attorney. So why wouldn't you call Laura Bramnick at 480-624-2705? For more info, visit talkrealestateaz.com or call 480-624-2705.
Hi, I'm Johnny Dean.
And I'm Rick, the Professor Plum.
Every day on Bucket Strategy Investing, we're talking about financial planning, investment decisions, and retirement strategies.
We focus on wealth education and the strategy designed for the needs you have today.
And the goals you have for the future. Tune in to Bucket Strategy Investing.
And call in with questions.
Retirement strategies, taxes, Social Security, and more. That's what we're talking about on Bucket Strategy Investing.
For the latest in the world of golf, tune in to Inside Golf every Monday morning at 7:18 right here on Money Radio. Inside Golf is brought to you by Bodify and Cool Sculpting, where confidence takes shape.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob Roth, and you're listening to Health Futures. We're on our third segment. I got Dr. Michael Zent from Jewish Family and Children's Service, otherwise known as JFCS, And we're going to jump right in because we've been talking about behavioral health, and we've been talking about, where we're at as a community today, where it stands. Michael was giving us his background, being in the business for about 40 years, and really some of the challenges and some of the changes he's seen. But obviously the need continues to grow, and this is something that is making our headlines every single day. When we were at the break, we were talking about the most recent one was with that beheading, and you were sharing with me that person and the other person were in our state system, were they not?
Yeah, both the people were in the state system, and they had been, under Arizona law, we have a not guilty by reason of insanity,
right?
Where the actual sentence into special unit state hospital is equivalent to what the prison sentence would be, right? So, in this was a particularly gruesome event. If anybody followed the different write-ups, because not only was it decapitation and a dismembering, but the alleged perpetrator, tried to saw off his own arm. In fact, did saw off the hand and plucked out his own eye. Now, when the public reads that, people say they must have really had some problems, some mental health problems to get into that kind of state.
Right.
And the truth is, they did. So when somebody then comes out of a setting like the state hospital, then there's services that are, that they're referred to. So the system, it's sad that it takes those kinds of things sometimes to drive investment in mental health and, investment in social services. But the reality is that the system could do a better job of keeping people connected, and it could do a better job of the early warning signs when somebody is, as we clinically say, decompensating, which means if they're not taking their medication, often the symptoms are occurring. The system could do a better job of monitoring that and doing early interventions. So these high visible cases that we're seeing, whether it's in Denver or the Giffords, sad Giffords shooting in Tucson, those individuals had either some contact with the mental health system or they were identified as having a mental health problem. So the system as a whole can do better. So part of it's money, but part of it's community will to pay attention to these issues.
It's interesting. When you sit down, you talk about the system, but I think our community as a whole, we all have a duty to be on the lookout. It's amazing how we're in different times today, and you had this incredible speaker at the last Brighter Tomorrow luncheon. That's one of the key fundraisers that you have, and I mentioned at the top of the show, you rely on philanthropy to do a lot of the work that you do. And this woman, she chanted out that my son is Adam Lanza, and she was the guest speaker, and where she had, if I recall correctly, she had shared that on social media, and she was encouraged to share that with others to really come out and talk about mental health illness, but was afraid to. And
right.
And you know what? These are people that are real people like you and I. And you know what? If they can get some help relating to treatment, through medication or therapy, they can live normal lives. They can be productive members in our communities. But it's our job as a community to be able to say there's something wrong. And I'm talking about teachers. I'm talking about, as adults, to see these types of behaviors to get people the help they need.
Yeah, early intervention is critical. And like she was saying, she's giving an example of her child. But if there's no intervention, and the intervention, the technologies have gotten better. So the medications are better. Probably mental illness affects, let's say, 1 in 5 people at some point in their life. Many people, they have issues with depression or anxiety, and they're seeking services. So even from just a productivity standpoint, if somebody's depressed or they're anxious, they're not as productive at their work. So all society has an interest at all levels in investing in good mental health services. If you take kids that don't get early treatment, what you're going to get is then an older kid, and then you're going to get an adolescent, and then you're going to get a young adult where they continue to have the problems. If you intervene and bring in effective treatment, that lifespan can be much more productive.
Absolutely. And it's recognizing that person needs help. And, it starts with us as parents, and then it goes to, our teachers and others to recognize this. It's hard to believe it was 16 years ago when the Columbine massacre happened. Right. And I remember that like yesterday. And unfortunately, we've had many more. And, I think the public and even I and others and maybe even you say, how does this stop? How can we stop this? Well, one way to stop it is to be able to have services like the services that JFCS provides, because if you go back 16 years ago and you look at the number of people you're treating then versus what you're treating now, I would say it's probably 5, maybe 10 times as many.
Right.
And part of that is identifying people that need help. And granted, 97% of the audience that you're serving are poor. But, there's so many people that weren't getting help and are getting help, but there's so many more that need it.
Yeah, and when you look at it as a whole, it's probably not possible to prevent all incidents, but it is possible to do a much better job and identify. And I would tell the listening public that mental health services, when you go in for treatment, it still carries a stigma, and we've been battling the issue of stigma for a long time, because people say, well, it's okay, to tell somebody about my gallbladder, but not that I just walked out because I was depressed and I saw a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a mental health practitioner. So one thing parents can do and the community can do as a whole is help with that stigma. It's okay to seek help. It's okay to go talk to somebody. It's okay if I had bad days and I keep having bad days. It's okay to seek help.
Right.
Help seeking is okay. And if we can get that message out more, that's a positive thing.
And I think that's one of the resounding remarks that our speaker said at the Brighter Tomorrow luncheon was, I don't think she realized how many people were out there that wanted to help, because she was so fixated on that stigma that she had an Adam Lanza as her son, and she was afraid that if she remarked about it, people would shun her, and it was the complete opposite. People opened up their arms and said, how can we help? And they were giving her resources. So, and that's what we're doing here for our listening audience. We're giving resources to our community. We do have a challenging behavioral health situation, I'll put it, in our community right here in Arizona. But the great thing about it is we got great resources here too. And as I mentioned before, we had St. Luke's on, and they've got some great behavioral health centers. So, if you need someone that needs treatment, you can go there. And there's some others that are here in our community. And, if you have any questions as our listening audience, feel free to call JFCS, and you can reach them at 602-279-7655, or you can find them on the web at jfcsaz.org. The other thing I will make an appeal for, as I shared earlier, my family's been a benefactor for a number of years. They rely on philanthropy. If you believe in this mission, you can find out more about that on that web page, and you can also find out more by calling. So, Dr. Zent, we're on our third break. I can't believe it. We're just rolling along.
All right.
So
coming back we're going
to come back
for the home stretch.
For the home stretch, and then we'll go right into the weekend. It's hard to believe that we're coming up on our weekend. You're listening to Health Futures Taking Stock in You. My name is Bob Roth, and I got Dr. Michael Zent in the house. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the exclusive home of all the money talk you'll ever need. Money Radio keeps you informed on big and small business decisions.
The stock market,
the bond market,
commodities, life insurance,
energy annuities,
retirement accounts,
Social Security,
health concerns,
getting the best deals,
avoiding the rip-offs,
and of course, it all makes you a lot smarter. It's the only place that does what we do. Money Radio. Make it a habit. A good habit.
Hi, I'm Nick Grovich, host of Good as Gold, heard every Thursday at 1 p.m. on Money Radio. I have over 35 years of experience as a professional coin and bullion dealer, as well as a published author of 2 books that expose the inside workings of the rare coin market. Each week, I'm going to share with you my tips on how to safely invest in precious metals and what to do if you're one of the 90% that were sold overpriced rare coins. Tune in every Thursday at 1 p.m. as I host Good as Gold, exclusively on Money Radio 1510 AM and 99.3 FM.
Hi, this is John Neal from PTI Securities and Futures and a frequent contributor to the Stocks and Jocks radio program, as well as the branch manager of our Peoria, Arizona location. I hope you, like many of our listeners, have benefited from the outstanding market returns of the last several years. But have you recently become unsettled due to the worldwide geopolitical uncertainty, the increased volatility of commodities and currencies, or the looming Federal Reserve interest rate hikes? If you have answered yes to any of these questions, we can help you. Here at PTI, we offer a unique variety of income-producing securities as well as our proprietary hedging program to protect your assets. More information about these exciting programs and much more can be obtained from our website at ptisecurities.com, or feel free to email me at john@ptisecurities.com. That's JOHN@ptisecurities.com.
Say, what do you think? Is there something wrong with people who get up in the middle of the night so they can do a radio show called Business for Breakfast from 6 to 8? Well, if there is, they're not looking for a cure. In fact, they've been doing it for years. Start your day with Julie Doherty, Ken Morgan, and Dawn Nietzsche, along with traffic updates and weather with John Weatherby. You'll get the latest business news, market info, and hear interesting guests. When you put it all together, that's worth getting up for.
Learn how to get your estate in order Wednesday mornings at 9 on Estate Planning with attorney Matt Dana. With over 30 years of experience and expertise, Matt will share cutting-edge strategies, ideas, and tips on how to help secure your estate from life's unexpected events. Wondering how to protect and maximize your family's inheritance? Wonder no more. Listen to Estate Planning with attorney Matt Dana every Wednesday morning at 9, right here on Money Radio 1510 AM and 99.3 FM.
Negative reviews and low search rankings drive customers to your competition. See how you stack up against the competition online. Go to freecriscore.com, promo code FREE.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. My name is Bob Roth, and you're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. I've got Dr. Michael Zent from Jewish Family and Children's Service here in the studio, otherwise known as JFCS. We're in our fourth segment. If you missed the first three, you can catch them right up on our website at cypresshomecare.com. And I want to just get right back into it, Michael. We were talking about the value of philanthropy. Can you share with our listening audience what that means to JFCS?
Well, JFCS could not do what it does without philanthropy. Even though we may have a contract, often, the rate that people pay covers only selected services. So a good example is when you take kids. Okay, so maybe you might get your visit covered, but what the child needs is maybe a backpack to go to school,
right,
or some transportation subsidy, or some extra help from a program that can enroll them in sports or an educational program that can do some tutoring. None of those things can happen without philanthropy. It's also true that people in treatment will lose their eligibility or coverage either by their insurance or by Medicaid. And we use philanthropic funds to complete that treatment. So just because somebody becomes ineligible doesn't mean we kick them out. And that's a very good use of our funds. There are also people who don't qualify who have no resources. And they are not only poor, but you can't get them qualified for a payer source, but they need help. And so we use those funds for that as well. We are in the middle of a large fundraising effort because we're moving into a change that we call integrated care. And that integrated care...
I want you to talk about that.
Okay.
That's great.
Yeah, the integrated care is where you can get both your behavioral health services and your primary care in the same setting. So our site that we're developing at Catalina is 25,000 square feet, about 20,000 square feet for behavioral health and about 5,000 square feet for primary care. We have an on-site pharmacy. So we're currently in a capital campaign to fund that.
Now, you called it Catalina, but it's located in Maryville, right?
It's in Maryville, which Maryville is one of the highest need areas in the state.
Right.
It has what we call the highest out-of-home removal rate from the Department of Child Safety, which means kids are taken away from their parents, either for abuse or neglect. And it's a poor area. It's a heavily Latino area. And so it's a really, really high need area. Our center's at 33rd Avenue in Thomas, for those of you that know the Valley. So the integration approach is to begin to treat people holistically, in the sense that you have physical health needs and you have behavioral health needs. A very small example is you have a mother with, say, 2 kids. It's July. You take 40% of our clients, patients, take public transportation to get there. So imagine in July, you come in, you get a service, maybe there's a prescription written for medication for one of your children, and you got to get back on the bus.
Go to pharmacy.
And go to pharmacy.
Right.
That's a very, very time-consuming process, and people are less likely, the more barriers put in place, they're less likely then to do that. So on-site pharmacy, and eventually, when we get the funding, on-site primary care is going to have a tremendous impact on the kids and the adults and the families that we see.
I think it's a recipe for success, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it takes a lot to get there if they're using public transportation, and oftentimes if we make it cumbersome and difficult to complete what the treatment protocol is and getting the prescription or whatever the therapy is, then what good was the visit in the first place? So
exactly,
very, 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 it's a very solution-oriented solution. The location is dynamite. As I said before, they really, really do some wonderful services in our community, and they rely on philanthropy. And the integrated health piece is the one that I think is so interesting, because now we're looking at the whole person, the mind, body, and spirit of that person, and you can address all of those. Where before you were just really addressing the mind and maybe the spirit, but not the body. And now you can take care of the body too, which is really
the
nice.
Physical part has never been very well integrated between the mental health system and the primary care system. It's moving in that direction, but for our adults population, for example, that we see, there are so many people have so many health problems. They are so significant that group dies almost 30 years before the general population. And I can't say that strong enough, because they have problems with diabetes, congestive heart failure, hypertension, many, many, many health problems. The medications that are often used you have to monitor the side effects. That's why people need to get lab work done.
Right.
They need to understand. If you're diabetic, you want to be, managing your blood sugar, your A1C level, and that takes patient engagement often. So all those things will pay off in real years added to people's lives. And as people begin to do more and more of this, it's a trend. We're seeing a reformation, if you will, in some of the way the systems deliver services.
And as I said at the top of the show, the primary benefit is that. The secondary benefit is going to save money for our healthcare system.
Absolutely.
So if we can keep track of these people, we can get them on the proper therapies and the proper regimens, they're going to be healthier, and they're not going to be in our ERs, and they're not going to be in our skilled nursing facilities or in our treatment centers. So it's going to cost us a lot less money. So it is the ultimate win-win proposition.
It is. So many people that come into the emergency room, I think if you talk to the emergency rooms across the valley, they would tell you that a lot of people that come in don't need to be there. It's they don't have access, and it's because maybe it's education, or because it's convenience, or because it's coverage. But coming into the emergency room is very, very expensive. So, for example, somebody doesn't control their diabetes because they can't get to their visits, or they're not educated about food, or they're not monitoring. That person may come in a single year. We've seen people have 17 and 25 visits to the emergency room. Well, that makes no sense to keep paying for that. unless we think of a much better way to intervene earlier so that we don't have to have the end of that visit in the emergency room.
I've had 2 ER doctors on our show before. I had Dr. Alan Roga, who has an incredible product.
Fantastic.
And he just recently sold his company, Stat Doctors. I wish him a huge congratulations. And I had Dr. Kevin Hazelhurst from Arrowhead Hospital, and both of them said resoundingly, the last place you want to go is to the hospital ER. That's the last place you want to go. So, I mean, I want our listening audience to listen to that, because a lot of people use our ERs as their primary care physician.
Exactly. That's what they do.
And the ERs are where you can pick up just about anything. And, for me, where I am taking care of our aging adult population, the last place we want to go, unless we really have to, is an ER or even a doctor's practice. And I advocate, for our centurions or close to our centurions, is to get people to make house visits. It's much easier to do it, less stressful for them, and it keeps them away from those communicable diseases. They're not going to be exposed to any of those things, all those germs.
It makes sense, yes.
It definitely does. It's hard to believe we're just finishing up, but one of the things I want you to end on, if you would, is how you collaborate with other services in the state and the other community providers, because I think that's the thing I love about what you guys do.
Well, we're involved in several networks of other community-based providers, but we collaborate not only with providers, we collaborate with, we have a contract with the state. Arizona has over 17,000 kids in foster care. It's nothing but gone up. There's backlogged cases. People read the newspaper. 2/3 of almost those kids in foster care are involved some way with JFCS in treatment. One of the things that we've done to be collaborative is we actually have staff outstationed into the offices so that we can do early case identification and collaboration for children who are under the custody of Division of Child Safety.
If you want to learn more, go to jfcsaz.org. Call them at 602-279-7655. And I want to share this with our listening audience. You and I are working on an aging adult solution for our community. And I want to bring you back because I want to talk to you about this Jewish Federation study that was done and where we see aging adult care in our future. And JFCS and Cypress Home Care Solutions have partnered in the past and will continue to partner to provide solutions for our aging adult population.
I look forward to coming back.
Michael, that's it. Make it a great day. Have a great weekend. I'm Bob Roth and Dr. Michael Zent from JFCS. Make it a great day. Bye.
Thank you.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress Home Care Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit cypresshomecare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 99.3 FM.
The money talk you love, still on 1510 AM, and now 99.3 FM.
Are you retired or headed into retirement? Call Anil Vazirani and Secured Financial Solutions at 800-957-5604 extension 200 to learn how to maximize your Social Security and Medicare benefits and to potentially reduce taxes on your Social Security income. Call Secured Financial Solutions at 800-957-5604 extension 200 or on the web at www.theripa.com. Listen to Anil Vazirani on the Money Radio Show every Thursday at 9 a.m.
Money Radio 1510
and 99.3 FM.
Is KFNN Mesa Phoenix, K257CD Phoenix, a familiar voice on Money Radio for years and still answering your financial questions. That's Ray Lucia, weekdays at 10 a.m. Dow is down 496 points. The S&P 500 down 62. The NASDAQ down 163.
When people want to talk about money, this is the place they come to. And there's more on the way after this break for the latest news. And we begin now.
Special report, the Dow drops more than 500 points. I'm Jim Ascendio. U.S. stocks drop sharply for a second day following a